Hey everybody, it's Jennie Wright here. I am so glad that you're here with me today because I'm getting to speak with Sherri Coffelt. Sherri and I met a couple months ago, I think, through some networking, through LinkedIn. We started up a conversation, found that we had a lot in common, and decided that it would be a really great idea to get to know each other better and share some of what we thought would be interesting with you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sherri. But first, I want to ask if you have a business that supports your life, because a lot of business owners miss out on what they actually want to do, and their bucket list gets longer and longer and longer. Mine is like an arm long. And Sherri does things differently. She actually lives her bucket list now while still working and growing in her own business. And in today's conversation, we're going to hear how she does it and the freedom finder formula that got her there. So Sherri, thanks so much for doing this with us.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I can't wait to talk more.
Absolutely. And I'm excited because we've been talking back and forth a little bit, and you've been talking about this bucket list. And I am a woman of a certain age where thinking about my bucket list has definitely been there on and off over time. But I'm always so busy in my own stuff. And I guess I'd like to understand a little bit more about your passion of why you want to live your bucket list now.
Oh, yeah. There's always a someday, right? And
Mm.
so often we go through our life in the busyness of life, thinking someday I'll do whatever, or when I retire, I'll, go on that trip of a lifetime. And I've always been a believer of why wait for someday? Why wait until, we're retiring to do the things we want to do? And like so many people out there have a heart attack 6 months later. And so I've always been a little bit of the no someday in my life. And when I started working with business owners, what I found is that so many of them let their business take over their life. And so not only were they not living their bucket list, they weren't even barely living their life because their life was their business at the time. And that happened to me when I first started my business. Now, I'm kind of strange because when I first started my businesses, went entrepreneurial, I should say, 22 years ago, I started 3 businesses in the first year. So, I had to be the overachiever, right? But business owners need to build their business from the starting point so that it fits into the lifestyle they want to live. And that doesn't happen all the time. And in fact, one of the reasons why I'm more passionate about it today than I ever have been is I had my own knock upside the head moment a few years ago when I was doing my annual planning process. And every year I do part of my process, I call it the Freedom Finder formula, is to write a letter to a friend you haven't seen for a year, describing to them what will have happened 1 year from today when you've achieved everything that you want to achieve in your life and in your business. So it's writing as if you will. And I found myself that October, which is usually when I start my planning process, writing this letter and once again talking about how I wanted to travel more. What I really wanted was to travel full time. And yet I had built a business, very successful business, that was somewhat dependent or largely dependent on me doing live speaking and live networking. That was my major marketing strategies. So if I stopped doing my, 2 to 3 speaking engagements a month at least, my leads started to dry up. So I could hardly kind of go jetting off to Australia, or my business was going to suffer. And I'll be honest with you, it was tough because I felt very out of integrity, because here I was teaching my clients to build their vision for their life first and then build a business that fits into that vision. And yet I had unconsciously got myself to a place where I had done just the opposite. So it was tough.
How
And
did you get out of that? How did you change your business so that it wasn't tied to you doing 2 or 3 in-person or
yeah,
networking opportunities? And how are you running a business pretty much with a nomadic lifestyle?
yeah. Well, at the time, basically what I did was I put a stake in the ground and I said, I've got 6 months to totally change my marketing strategy, sell my house, put my stuff in storage. And literally I was off to Australia for 4 months. And what I did was I went from a majority offline marketing strategies, which is more the speaking, live speaking, to a majority of my leads coming from virtual activity. So I changed my marketing strategies, and I did it in a way that allowed those strategies to be run from anywhere in the world. And when I work with my clients, what I do is I find out what their vision is first. That's the first thing that they need to be doing, is creating their own vision for their life and their business, and then choose marketing strategies that fit into that lifestyle. So I simply did that for myself, and went to online strategies where I was doing more online speaking than offline. I was using at the time Facebook ads, completely changed how I was getting my leads. And so within 6 months, I had done that, sold my house, put my stuff in storage, and I was off to Australia. And I've never looked back. But I also want to say that bucket list doesn't necessarily mean traveling full time, because that's what my bucket list is. It may not be yours. It may be
It's definitely not mine.
yeah, it may be being a full-time mom and having a business you can run from 9 to 3 and be a full-time mom outside of school hours. Or it may be an RV lifestyle, or it may be retiring your husband or having your husband be part of your business. Or it doesn't matter what your bucket list is. And by the way, bucket list does not have to be these big, trip around the world kind of items. It can be as simple as, I want to spend Saturdays going on a hike.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be these life-changing kinds of events. It's
Mm-hmm.
really about what's that lifestyle that you truly want to live, and then building your business to fit into that.
Oh, absolutely. I fully agree. I've worked very hard to, by my background, you can tell I like plants.
Yeah.
So I have worked very hard to, build a space for myself and for my family. And my partner works very hard too, to allow us to have and live in the comfort that we want to live in.
Right.
As opposed to where we were, which was living in a place that, we were always working towards,
Mm-hmm.
when we can buy a house, or when we can do this, or when we can do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's start living that life. Let's make the lifestyle and then
Right.
make the business support it, which I love. What do you think stops people from following those dreams?
Well, there's the two biggest enemies of entrepreneurship, and I believe that they are inconsistency and overwhelm. And the
Mhm.
bottom line is, I think that inconsistency creates a lot of the overwhelm, because we all know what happens. There is so much noise out there today, and it's gotten worse even since COVID started. All of these gurus telling you that you have to do something to grow your business. And
Yep.
one day it's a challenge, and one day it's a webinar, and one day it's a summit, and one day it's Facebook ads. It's all these things, and they pile on top of each other because we don't necessarily know what's going to work for us. So everything, it's that shiny object syndrome. Everything kind of sounds good. So we start implementing these things, and all of a sudden one gets put it on top of each other. We're not doing any of them consistently. So
No.
we're not getting the return on an investment of time and money. And we just go into overwhelm. And if we'd simply start with pulling back and being consistent, a lot of that overwhelm will fall away.
I actually want to add something to what you're saying, because it is inconsistency and it is overwhelm, but it is also lack of proof of concept. So if you do an online challenge, or if you do a summit, or if you do a webinar and it doesn't work for you straight out of the box, like the first time you're not overwhelmingly successful like you think the gurus are, then you abandon it and you go to the next thing, which adds to the overwhelm and lack of consistency.
You're so right.
You're setting yourself up for complete and utter failure by doing that, versus, and I bet you do this unconsciously or even consciously, is trying to perfect the one technique, then moving on to the next thing to add into your toolbox of, tricks that you can do. So perfecting that webinar, running it 2, 3, 4 times, working out all the bugs, getting it perfect, making it a lead generation machine, and then adding the next thing.
Yes, I agree 100%. And because we don't know what we don't know, when we don't get the results that we think we should get, it's so easy to just throw it out the window. And that just creates more work. It's just because every time you start something new, you start from ground zero and you have to recreate virtually everything. So 100% true.
Absolutely. If you could lay it out for us, like give us a step-by-step, what are the keys or the step-by-steps to ending that feast and famine cycle of getting clients and just creating consistency overall?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that feast or famine cycle, I can't speak today, is a killer. And, many of us have been there, and it's that cycle we go through, particularly in the first few years of being an entrepreneur, where you go out and you get a few clients, and then you busily go out and serve them. And then you put your head up and realize, oh no, I have no cash coming in now. I'm done with these clients. And you have to start the cycle all over again. And that's part of the inconsistency cycle too. Just
Mhm.
like, throwing the latest strategy out the window is. And what happens with that is that we always feel like we're behind the 8 ball. And when we're doing our marketing, we're throwing what I call the marketing spaghetti against the wall. And it's creating, and it's really the fact that we're not consistent is contributing to that feast or famine cycle. And so the reality is that getting out of that feast or famine cycle is not hard, but it isn't easy. It's simple, but it isn't easy.
There's a
And
big difference
that's,
there.
yeah, there is a difference, because I'm going to tell you these 4 things, and you may say, well, that doesn't sound like rocket science. And the truth is, it isn't. The trick is we have to actually do it. And that's where, as entrepreneurs, we become that victim of the shiny object syndrome. And let's face it, most of us as entrepreneurs are visionaries. So we're always kind of going to be susceptible to that shiny object syndrome. So anyways, let's get to the keys. So the first key is to start with your vision. And we've talked about that a little bit before, but you have to get clear on what it is you're trying to create, because you can't hit a goal that you haven't set. You can't map a course to X until you know what X is, right?
Okay.
So you have to get clear on your vision. And that means taking the time to take a step back and to really ask yourself, what is it that I want to create in my life as well as my business? That's all areas of your life. Your health, your relationships, your environment. Where do you want to live? What's the lifestyle you want to live? What's an average day look like? Getting really clear on that, as well as the wealth that it's going to take to make that happen,
Mhm.
and how your business fits into all of that. Because that's where it all starts. Once you have that clarity, then the real fun stuff can start to happen. I'm curious. Do you have any kind of a visioning process that you go through, Jennie?
Oh, yes. And so my partner and I will brew a cup of tea,
Yeah.
sit, and we'll talk about what we want things to look like. And then we'll start, because we're both incredibly analytical, is we'll create the idea of what we want to achieve, and then we create that work back of how we're going to get there, because
Yeah.
unless I know the path, I just can't imagine it.
Mhm.
And that's part of our process. It usually gets, written down into things we want to accomplish. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a
Yeah.
vision board kind of person or a
Yeah.
journaling person.
Yeah, and a lot of people love vision boards, and I do too. I think they're a visual representation,
Mhm.
and some of us are definitely much more visual. But I'm with you. I think the words that go with it really help to make it real, as well as the numbers. Part of my Freedom Finder formula is actually creating your money goal and doing it in a way that's not, I want to make $10,000 a month, because that's what, if I ask 10 entrepreneurs what they want to make their income goal, they're either going to say, I want to make 6 figures, I want to make 10K a month. There's
Yeah, that's
almost
the norm.
yeah, there's no rhyme or reason around it. That's just what it's almost like we're taught to say that, right? Well,
Yeah.
what the question really is, how much money do you need to make to live the lifestyle you want to live?
Mhm.
Right. So that's where you have to start. So yeah, so get clear on that vision. That's the place to start. The second thing is, and this really speaks to our consistency conversation, is use what I call the rule of 3. And the research that's been done on how our brains work is that our brains are designed to best handle things in groups of 3. And if you just think about your normal life, you'll probably recognize that a lot of options that we're given are in groups of 3. So you may have 3 levels of your signature program, or you may have 3 different talk titles, or you may have 3 choices for dinner tonight that you give your kids. Our brains work really well in groups of 3. Do that same thing in your marketing strategies. Choose 3 marketing strategies that are consistent with who you want to talk to. They're going to reach your ideal audience, and they're consistent. I can go into more detail on this if we have time, but they're consistent with the lifestyle you want to live. So you're not like me, finding yourself, 17 years into business or whatever it was, finding that you're using marketing strategies that don't fit the lifestyle you want to live, and stick to them. Implement them on a consistent basis, day in and day out, whether you have a full book of clients or you have a waiting list. And you will be amazed at how much more progress that you make, how much simpler it is, how much less stress it is. I can go on and on. So that's the second step or key. The third one is the consistency itself. And consistency needs to be across everything you do. So yes, in the strategies that you use, but also in self-care, making sure that you're planning your calendar so you have time to be and time to spend with friends and family and times to just regenerate and revive yourself. Consistency in your morning routine, consistency in your work hours. Consistency is a great place in your life to create some structure. It doesn't have to be literal, from 9 to 9:05, I do this, but that consistency will help you know what to do and when to do it. And you'll be amazed how much difference that it makes. And implementing those marketing strategies consistently. And the fourth thing that I want to share is to make sure you build a bulletproof follow-up system. And I have to imagine, Jennie, you're pretty good at follow-up. Would I be correct?
I do my very darndest at good follow-up. Yes.
Yes. And it makes a huge difference, right?
Sure does. Absolutely.
And I tell my clients all the time, if you are not committed to a follow-up strategy, stop networking, stop doing podcast guesting, stop doing a lot of those things because it's a waste of your time.
Absolutely. They can,
If you're not going to follow up.
No, absolutely not. If you don't follow up, there's no point in doing half the stuff that you're doing.
Exactly.
And if you're not a follow-up person, I'd say just get somebody else, if you can't do it, find somebody who can, like a virtual assistant or something that you can put in place to make it happen.
And put systems and processes in place to help you. I mean, I have a very simple, again, it's simple, it's not easy, strategy in place for follow-up from networking events, from speeches that I do, from virtually everything, from the summit. If I participate in a summit, what do I do as a follow-up? And the only thing that you have to do is have those systems in place so that it doesn't make it feel huge and feel like climbing up Mount Everest to do it. But you have to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the work that you're doing and turning those leads into the next step. And that can be collaboration partnerships like you and I have developed, referral strategies, or yes, new clients. So if you will commit to doing just those 4 things, just getting clear on your vision, keeping it simple and using the rule of 3, being consistent about the 3 things that you choose, and making sure you've got a follow-up process in place to continue to implement each one of them, you'll be amazed at how much more productive you are, how your clients grow faster, and honestly, how much more room there is in your life to live your bucket list now and take your business with you.
All right, Sherri, you just dropped a whole bunch of stuff that was awesome. There's a lot here, and I recommend that people not only listen back and try and digest a little bit more about what Sherri was saying, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. In addition, there's a really great way for you to get even more out of this, because Sherri has something to share with you that will help you get there. So Sherri, tell us a little bit about the really great, I think it's a guide or a report that you have that people can use to help get consistent clients.
Absolutely. So for my clients are primarily service-based entrepreneurs who have a huge gift to share, and they want to do it in a way that allows them to live their bucket list now and take their business with them. Big surprise, right? Shocker, what I always hear from them is, okay, so I know that I get most of my clients when I talk to people, when I actually have a call with them or a Zoom conference with them, but how do I get people on my calendar? And that becomes their biggest kind of struggle. So what I put together is called 17 Easy Ways to Fill Your Calendar with Potential Clients. And what I do in that guide is I give you those ways in a synopsis of each one of them, that some of which you can implement in 15 minutes or less, and some of which take more time. Like I don't think a summit is on there, but maybe it should be. That take a little bit longer to implement. And what I recommend that you do is grab the report and then go through the 17 items. And you're gonna laugh because I'm gonna give you my own medicine. Choose 3, right? So start with 3 that you are committed to implementing and that meet that marketing criteria, making sure that it fits your lifestyle as well as where your ideal clients can hang out. And oh, by the way, make sure that it also matches the amount of time and money that you have to invest, and implement those first 3 first. Once you get those done, because some of them, like I said, will take you 15 minutes. I'll give you a cheat. One of them is add a link to your connection call in your email signature. You can do that in 5 minutes after we get off of this interview, right? Get that one done, and then you can add another one on your list. So go get the report and start to put these things in place and be consistent, and you'll be amazed at how far you can get.
Fully agree. You are on the same page as that. So thank you so much, Sherri. I really appreciate it. I'm sure there's a lot here that we could continue talking about. This is all the time that we have for the moment, but I really appreciate you sharing all of these incredible steps as well as the freebie that I'm sure people will get. So go and grab it. We'll have a link in or around this video so you can do that. So don't miss out on grabbing that from Sherri, and also making sure that you connect with Sherri. So find her on social media. We'll have some of those links around here as well so that you can connect with her that way. Sherri, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Thanks so much.